Hello and welcome back yet again to the Power Podcast. As I am Joe, I have here with me Alex and Sam.
Howdy.
That was a great intro, guys. Keep working on it, though. Today we're actually going to be talking about double-edged powers. Last time we were talking about double-edged items or weapons, such as the double-edged sword, which is kind of where this whole discussion comes from. What I mean by a double-edged power is a power that grants someone an ability, but also creates a weakness, a drawback, or even has some particular downside that kind of is a trouble or a reason as to why it is a moral or an ambiguous choice. Because you could take it, but do you really want to sacrifice something for it? The obvious usual one is because I am a massive One Piece fan, is the fact that you take away the ability to swim just to have any of the powers of the Devil Fruits. However, Sam, do you have any examples for us today?
Yes, I have a Japanese one as well, actually.
Go on then.
From the great game series Drakengard, which by great game series I mean the first one and only the first one. Wherein the characters in the game, there are like mythical creatures such as dragons, fairies, golems, and various other creatures. But the humans in that series can essentially form a pact with them by sharing their souls, like merging them together to become one being, somewhat. Which means they can like have telepathy, they can like talk to each other through telepathy, and the humans gain increased strength. But in doing so, it means that both, like if one of them dies, or one of them even gets really badly hurt, the other one also feels that pain and also can die or get badly hurt.
So, it kind of reminds me.
Not only that.
Sorry, I was just going to say it kind of reminds me of the symbiotic relationship that Kami and Piccolo have in Dragon Ball Z. If you don't know it, they're two separate entities, but if one gets hurt, the other one feels the pain. If one dies, both of them die together.
Okay. And also, they lose something about themselves.
Okay.
So it's not only this that they become one target, more or less. It also is that they lose something about them. Like the main character in the series, or in the first game, loses their ability to speak, while another who is a musician loses their ability to sing, and another like loses their ability of time to affect them, so they will remain forever young.
Again, as I said, like when you first said this example to me, I really think it's a matter of perspective. Like again, if it's a musician, they lose their ability to sing. A person who loses their ability to speak, or say for instance, a person who loses their ability to continue through time, in other words, age, or so on and so forth. I really think it's down to a perspective, because again, if someone's like at their peak physical condition, and there's nothing better than what they currently are now, everything is downhill from here. The ability of losing one's time is actually seeming to be pretty good. Or if you were already a person who didn't really like talking, and then had the excuse to never be able to talk again, some people would see that as an upgrade. I know not a lot, but some people would. And the ability of singing, getting superpowers versus the ability to sing, again, some people would take that. So it really just, I think that's, again, a moment of perspective. Sorry, Sam.
I should say it is very personal what you lose from what I've gathered from theories. Yeah. That's why, like, Kaim, who is this, like the leader, more or less, like a general, like I don't want to say like Link from Legend of Zelda, but kind of imagine that, like he's like the princess's defender, who is also his sister.
Of course.
But more or less, he does like command the army. He does like give the big grand speeches. So he loses his voice. And the child who wants to grow up to protect his sister, who he feels very guilty for, of course, he loses his ability to ever grow up.
Well, it's funny that you bring this up, because I'm going to do a deja vu, because this sounds like a lot like what
You're wrong.
Alex said yesterday, last episode, as you said about the monkey's paw. It's very specific to the thing that you said. It tries to think of a way to mess with you. I think that's kind of interesting. Like, I want to point this out. I wasn't dissing or negging the choice that you made here, Sam. I was just saying that, like, obviously in certain circumstances these wouldn't be considered downsides, but because that they're so personal, as you stated, they're quite circumstantial and situational. Like in any, it's similar to like this Fantastic Four situation. Like if everyone had their powers swapped, since they're so used to them, their fighting styles would be completely ruined to the point of which they just wouldn't be able to fight anymore. But as we've seen with Ben, aka the Thing, he is so happy in that second movie when he actually has the ability to just turn on and off his powers, that he loves it. And he kind of almost tortures Johnny Storm for it. Again, it's probably the best bit out of either of those two films. Again, it's Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer. That is the best moment in any of those.
No, the best moment is whenever they're at the bar playing darts. And like Johnny Storm's playing darts, and he asks Ben, "What would you like to do? Well, like if the world ends tomorrow, what would you do?" And he says, "I think I'd like to go out fighting, but actually I'd like to just go out with my like Alicia." And then like Johnny says, "Oh, it's nice to have someone, but you've got me, bud." That's the best moment from that series.
Okay,
you know.
All right. Again, a matter of perspective, also, because I can't remember that scene because it's not as memorable.
You gotta take the little moments of joy in the endless despair. Is all I'll say about this.
I like Fantastic Four.
As for my example, my actual example, it actually comes from a manner of different speaking, which is this is going to seem a bit. This is going to seem a bit boring, but with okay, so as I said with the One Piece thing, it's like, you know, you take this, you know you're getting this downside, because in the world they all say if you eat this fruit, you'll lose your ability to swim, and the sea will suddenly be able to weaken you. Water will suddenly zap your strength. But for my example, I'd actually have to say, for another thing to do with the double-edged power, is I'd have to say it's got to be the Green Lantern's ring in some way, shape, or form, in a different way, rather than the item itself, the actual power, because you have to have willpower to manifest that ability. As you said last time, as the item, its downside is that it needs power. It needs to be able to circumvent that power from someone else. It needs to be able to absorb it like a battery-powered thing. But if you don't have the willpower to create the constructs, it doesn't matter how much power the ring has. Hell, if you're not even chosen for it, it doesn't even matter. But even more so, it's the fact that just anything yellow is its weakness, and the yellow lanterns actually have the power to create constructs out of yellow. So that's why I say, like, you know, that power in general, like, it actually comes from within them, and this is a very strong contender in the forms of anything. I'd say willpower has one of the greatest downsides and weaknesses ever, because if you suddenly lose your fighting spirit, lose your will, or even just particularly just suddenly just start to tire it mentally, you can suddenly lose so much more in a fight, in an argument, in day-to-day life, even like, especially to do with like situations now in the current situations that we're all dealing with right now in the real world, but even more so just in every day-to-day life, regardless of what's going on outside or inside, your will can manifest your motivation and your strength. And if you don't tend to your mind, if you don't tend to your spirit, then, you know, you start losing that. So I'd say that that's one of it, because even in shows, you see some of their greatest feats are never giving up, like Steve Rogers. You know, I could do this all day, and it's exactly that fighting spirit. And I don't just mean the spirit to continue fighting, I mean the spirit to just continue fighting, even just to keep going, rather than keep going just to keep fighting. And that's why I say that one. I don't know if either of you guys have anything to add to that before we move on.
I'm going on. Oh, go on, Sam. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Nothing. I was just nothing.
No,
Oh, you were just going.
I won't say anything this time. I will remain quiet.
We've got Alex's yet. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of like, you say no, you should be saying, oh yeah, I didn't forget to say no. No, I won't say anything because it's forbidden.
No, go on.
Now I must
go on,
know.
Sam.
Because I'm just going to be contradictory again, and I'm
No,
sick of it.
No, I like it because that's the whole point of this podcast. It's discussion.
Well, I was going to say Hal Jordan. Pretty sure he lost his will when his city got destroyed, and then he went completely evil and killed everyone.
Exactly.
That will, and
I mean,
then he became the
became a
most
better
powerful Green
character.
Lantern for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I mean. Like his willpower is like I was making that as an example, but willpower honestly is shown in many different ways. It's just that one is more literal and more physical, whereas like the other ones is more metaphorical, rather than actual more metaphysical, or at least specifically more tangibly, visually, and more literally narrated and such.
So that's what that was just my point. That was just what I was thinking.
No,
I
like
was
it.
Parallax.
No, I like it. Like, sorry, Sam. I keep interrupting.
All right.
No,
I do.
I do. I don't think that your agreement was really contradictory. I think it was actually, if anything, proving the point a bit further, which is like, as soon as someone loses their will, especially specifically in Hal Jordan's case, he eventually goes mad, or eventually gives into fear, especially in the Injustice universe. But yeah.
No, I was just thinking the actual universe where he did go crazy whenever his city got destroyed.
When he became Parallax.
Yeah, when he literally made his city out of Green Lantern energy. Or
yeah.
he tried to, and then he went about killing all the Guardians, and whenever they tried to reboot it so that they could get a new Green Lantern.
Yeah, that one.
When they burned Kyle Rayner.
So yeah, I mean, he's just so I don't know. I just find him way more interesting when he's going completely cocoa bananas in any situation, because
he did do quite good in Final Crisis. It was one of the crises where it was involving him making universes for everyone to make them happy.
Okay. Now we're getting into the point that I actually don't like, which is that, like, no, I'm not going to stop you. I'm just going to have my opinion, and then you can continue, Sam. I really hate Hal Jordan's ability because, well, specifically, I hate the fact that the Green Lanterns have the ability to not only remake universes, but be able to will themselves through time. Like, stop it.
No, I mean, it wasn't because of the Green Lantern energy. It was because of something completely different. I think it was the Anti-Monitor. I think it was involving him.
Oh right.
Essentially,
molecule.
Essentially, if I remember correctly, it essentially overcomes someone else's plan to take over the universe. So he stole the plan, and then decided to make everyone happy by making universes where they could all live happily, like even the villains. And then the heroes kind of realized, well, once if he doesn't like the universes as they are, do we trust this guy?
Okay, well, so Alex, your example before we get into this actual discussion. No, don't worry, honestly. No, I liked it. It's just that I felt like we've
we always go
Alex
right off
shelf.
the train. Yeah. I know.
We could go off the train in about relatively, I'm going to say 5 minutes time from now.
Yeah.
So Alex,
just I'm waiting here politely. Just
would you say that you have anything to bring to this table? An element of intrigue?
Terrible intro. Yes, the Avatar state from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra.
Because elements.
Yeah.
sorry.
we got it. They got it. Every single day with this guy, I swear. Yeah. Basically, if you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, go see it. Not the movie, the TV series, I should add.
So on Netflix.
Do you mean the award-winning
on
great
Netflix,
movie?
Amazon Prime, and great. Don't even start. Basically, it is a state. It is like a strenuous form, as we would call it in the game, where the avatar, the person who controls all four elements, channels their past lives as the Avatar into one singular form or force. So basically, you literally become a one-man army, like within yourself. All of the techniques, knowledge, and power of those past lives are channeled through you in the present. So you basically, I mean, I'm not sure how many past lives, Avatar Aang has at that point, but it's a lot. It's hundreds, potentially even thousands of people,
I think they
inside.
say relatively. They don't say any kind of number. If they do say it's like like hundreds, if not thousands, but they do say at one point it's countless. And again, that either badly attests to how little time they have, or even worse, they attest to how capable they were at counting. But yes,
175 avatars. It says apparently. I looked it up.
Yeah,
That can't be right.
I'm sorry, but even if so, 175. Because sorry to cut you off, Alex. I love this form, and you are 100% right. It is like a strenuous form. The Avatar state adds all of their experiences, their techniques, and their understandings as to how they could bend all together to create this amalgam of almost this library of different specific special abilities and special effects, to be able to create this culmination of knowledge and power. And when this Avatar unlocks or uses his state temporarily, they have all that power, all that knowledge. Say, for instance, they're fighting against an opponent, they suddenly pull out a special technique, they have someone who could counter it, or some kind of special ability, and it is amazing. It's just fantastic.
It can be used, and that's the thing, it can be used in different ways as well. Like, you can have one specific experience. So, for instance, you're fighting against, a powerful firebender. You access all of the waterbender abilities for that. You don't necessarily, or if you want to go all out, you access all of the abilities, combined once. Like, the reason why Avatar Aang actually managed to freeze himself for 100 years was that he accessed both his Avatar state knowledge of air and water in order to like put himself in suspended animation, something that he didn't know how to do, but as a reflex, it made him, him and Appa and just freeze for 100 years.
But some people might be saying in our audience, how is this considered a downside? This sounds really good and very powerful.
I'm getting to that, audience. I'm glad you asked, especially in the comments. We do love our comments.
Yes,
so
show some stamina, audience.
The angrier the better. Just like type down exactly what it is. No, basically there is one major downside, and that is once you are in this state and you get killed, that's it. Like, the reincarnation cycle of the Avatar is broken. Like, and that's a big thing. So it's not just a case of like, oh, you'll die and then you'll come back later. No, that's it. No more Avatar. Your soul is essentially gone.
Or at least
from this plane of existence.
If you're somehow able to survive
it is the one final death.
Yeah. Korra's lost. Sorry, I've got a horrible cough.
Whatever.
I was actually going to say, funnily enough, it's funny that you haven't brought this up, and now we're going to go into the discussion topics about downsides. We actually do see that being used and seen in the non-canon universe of Legend of Korra.
I'm afraid it is, though. I don't want to bring it up. No,
I will say
because I know you're going to go on a rant for like half an hour
I
about
won't.
how bad
I'll cut it. I'll cut it as close as I can to at least 20 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I was just going to say, like, as much as I want to joke, I actually don't see Korra as non-canon. I just wish it was non-canon. But yes, it is still an interesting.
It ain't though.
It is still an interesting thing of the fact that the fact that we actually do get to see that consequence. But I do think that it's one of those things that it's a consequence that none of us wanted to really see. It was a consequence that the only other time that we'd want it to be seen is if it was at the end of an Avatar series. Like, at the end of the series, they die whilst using the Avatar state, and that's it. The Avatar doesn't come back. There's nothing left. The cycle is completely broken, and that's it. And then there's no more of that series left. And the downside that we see, and I guess I hate to have said this, I did actually kind of look back in my memory banks and also rewatch the fight with Korra versus the I can't remember her name, the metal bender from the season 4, and I did a little bit of research and I had a look a bit. Yeah, that one, whatever. I didn't really watch much of season 4, but I did watch that fight, and I did watch up till that point.
But to be fair, even though I do like Korra a lot, the 4th series is trash. I will say this,
all of them
as
are,
a fan
how
of Korra.
dare you, all of them are.
In-
If you could just get season 1 and season 3 connected and delete the existence of season 2 and season 4, I would actually say that it's better than Avatar: The Last Airbender. There, I said it.
Well, I mean, I know that those are the two. I know those are the two best series. I don't mind season 2. Now, I used to be quite mad at it, but now I'm kind of like not that bad. Whereas, like,
I'm sorry, there's a giant energy
so
kaiju fight. Like,
right. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like giant energy
No.
kaiju fight.
no,
It's fine.
it annoys me. It annoys me. But however, there are some good moments in season 2. Like, as much as I joke and as much as I'm an arsehole in this argument, I only do it really to tease Alex, and Alex knows it.
Yeah, it's real nice. I mean, yeah. Well, no, I don't actually. I'm gonna just cuddle my Korra, body pillow now. Thank you, and just say, don't worry.
Worst thing
They
is,
don't understand.
You're not
Korra.
lying. No, but I was actually going to say the interesting.
She's 16 or so, Alex.
That's the
Creepy.
legal age in England.
No,
So I've heard, Alex. Actually, I suppose she's like 21 by the end of the series, because unlike Avatar,
yeah,
Aang,
she
it
gets
doesn't go over a
super-
year. It actually goes over.
Yeah,
the
she
span
ages.
of like 5 or 6 years. Anyway, sorry, I was just gonna go back to the
yeah,
actual.
many years actually. Never mind.
The actual important part, which was during that fight, because, spoiler alert, something happens which obviously has the fact that the entire previous Avatar state is entirely gone. All of them are vanished, banished, or destroyed forever. Yay, Korra for ruining everything. But you actually then see that the Avatar state does make her more powerful, but she doesn't have any of the experiences of the previous lot, which is why that fight is so important for us to see. We finally see what happens when an Avatar with the Avatar state is. It's not about the power. It was about the experiences, and if she can't gain access to those, she loses that. And even just saying, like, even having it that the downside is more of an emotional and sentimental as well as technically a spiritual drawback. If the person was somehow to be revived or resurrected, and they still were the chosen Avatar because of the reincarnation cycle had not yet been able to go forth, it then creates this thing of, well, because of that, you then have this issue of the current Avatar who had failed the previous past lives in such a way that she no longer can access their guidance, their wisdom, their capabilities and their techniques.
Yeah, she is truly on her own, and I think that's one of the things that I kind of like about what it tried to do. I don't think that it does it entirely successfully. There are many gripes to have with it, but I do think it is that sort of like, yeah, you can't actually, access this immense power of your history. You are disconnected from your own history, very literally.
And this is why I wanted to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say this is why I wanted to bring up the factor of Korra, because in all honesty, the fact that I didn't say anything about you taking this as your example is because this is actually what I wanted to get into the discussion. Is that the actual going through with the actual downsides, the drawbacks, the weaknesses, as we've seen many times with Superman with kryptonite, Luffy with seawater or sea prism stone, where we see in Full Metal Alchemist they have to have equivalent exchange. Alchemy requires something of equal mass to be taken or of equal similar price to be taken, and nothing equals the equivalence of a human soul, so you cannot create like life without nothing. in return, and so on and so forth. And because of that, you see these moments, and they are tragic, and some people, including myself, would see them as a big failing of the series, but really it's actually the writers being able to take that step and go, no, this is the consequence, and this character has to live with it. And to that degree, I do hate Korra for that. I don't hate the writers for that. But at the same time, I also like Korra in a couple of different ways. It's just, for me, because of the legacy that I grew up with Aang, it actually kind of hurts me to see that it ends in such a way for everyone, including the future, because who do they have to look back to now? If the Avatar cycle it continues after Korra dies, they only have one person, and that's her, and that's scary, and that's kind of the interesting thing.
That's why I like it. This is why I like it, because you are essentially like, it is. I get why people really were pissed off at this, because it's like with reincarnation and stuff in this sense, like Aang, that we grew up with, wasn't really dead. He was still carrying on, literally spiritually, through the Avatar state. We would still have him, but once this has happened, like, he's just like, Korra is just like everyone else. Like, they don't remember their past lives. They may still be the same soul, but there is no connection there anymore. So they are effectively dead. Like,
I mean,
for real dead. And that is a scary concept, but this is also why I kind of love it, because it's like, it builds, a bigger legacy, I think, for later. It's
go on, Sam. Like,
yeah, it is different.
We've blocked you out. Go on, Sam.
you could also think of it like, now they're free from having to deal with it anymore.
That's if
Like,
they're still in the afterlife and not just been destroyed.
I know, but they're no longer having to like be attached to someone of the living anymore. They can just kind of. They essentially don't have the telephone anymore. They don't have the telephone line to the living world being, hey,
to some,
I need you now.
Like, to some degree, that
they can just kind of relax now and get on with their afterlives.
Yeah, well, that's if they still keep them. Like, again, like, there's no guarantee that their afterlives exist anymore, and whether or not they just burn out and are destroyed.
I think
I think it's like, I think this is the thing, because the soul is this, that like, they are essentially the same soul. So it's like they're there. They don't get to enjoy. They weren't getting to enjoy the afterlife anyway. They're not going to the spirit world. Like, they are all in this.
Well, technically, they're all in the spirit world. They're just tethered to the bridge between the living and the dead. Which I guess you could say in some ways
Hello?
is hello.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I think we cut out a little bit there, but can everyone still hear me?
Yeah, no, we can still hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'd say though, like, out of all of the weird and fairly interesting things that happen, though, is that, like, this actually really gets into the actual depth of the topic after 28 minutes, which is consequences, the actual dealing with the consequence of it. For instance, the devil fruit situation, or taking on becoming a person with special powers, or even using the avatar state, or merging your soul with another, or doing any of these different things that we've explained now, or even furthermore, which I will go into in a second. It's that thing of the consequence of taking it. For instance, in Full Metal Alchemist, to gain a special ability, where in Full Metal Alchemist you have to create transmutation circles. So you have to carve it into something or write it into something using pen, ink, chalk, engravings, blood. You have to write the circle, and it has to be relatively perfect enough to work. Whereas if you've seen the Portal of Truth, you gain an information that is almost like a muscle memory that allows you to be able to access the use of alchemy without doing that, by just clapping your hands together, thinking of what you need to transmute, and then touching with one or both hands the materials that you are going to sacrifice or manipulate through the forms of transmutation. The requirement to do so is sacrificing something of great importance. Some sacrificed their bodies. Others sacrificed their limbs and functions of their bodies. For instance, there's one person who loses their eyesight. There's another who loses their hand. Another who loses part of their insides. And therefore they have issues with breathing. There's many different ones that have it, but there is another thing that people can do, which is sacrifice others to access the portal. Which is, again, a horrible, heinous drawback of requiring it. Now, again, if you think about it on a perspective, if you have a moral compass, you might think, this is a kind of a drawback. The ultimate forms of power, and it's not really all that ultimate power, but the power, and I have to sacrifice fellow people, or I have to sacrifice something of myself. On the other hand, moral ambiguity, if not actual like sociopathics, if not psychopaths, would actually go, oh sweet, so you're telling me I can get powers and sacrifice the guys that I don't really care about / really hate and would love to get rid of? So again,
like that point, I would be just pushing someone into a portal anyway. Like, just like don't want to hear the drawback saying all I heard was ultimate power.
But that's what I mean. I think drawbacks come from neutral standpoints as well as negative. I don't really think that they come through a positive light. I don't know if any of you lot could actually really see any usage of negatives. I only can think of one, and again, it's another anime reference. I don't know if you guys see any ways that a negative or a downside could be seen or flipped in a way for negatives. Positives, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know, because the ones that I remember are always like, the rather ironic and horrible downsides. Like, I mean, there was like a continuity with Taskmaster where he used his powers. Like, basically, his power is that he could learn anything like instantly just by witnessing it once.
I knew you were going to talk about this. Sam brought this up a while back, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but in Swan continuity, the biggest drawback, he doesn't get to see this drawback until later in life, because while he was learning things at incredible speed in the short term, it was at the expense of his long-term memory. And basically, he gets superpowered dementia by the end of it. Like, he cannot remember his childhood, he can't remember he can barely remember like the woman that he loves who takes care of him at the end of the day. He's still a brilliant assassin. Like, if he sees something instantly, he can instantly copy it. If someone tries to like hit him, he could just hit back entirely. But he's basically just wandering around like a baby, just not really knowing who he is or what he's capable of anymore or what he's done.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's a good thing because he's the number one assassin. So he can't exactly be the number one assassin and murder people because he's incapacitated forever. Like he's spent, essentially. But on a personal level, I've always found that really sad. That's sad. I mean, okay, yeah, he killed loads of people, but that's sad. I like Taskmaster.
I mean, that is very similar to Charlotte, the anime.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, no, you've also said about that.
Spoiler.
Oh, yeah, actually, there's a lot of examples for that with downsides, yeah.
Because essentially, near the end, it turns out the main character, his power is not only the ability to take over people's bodies for 5 seconds, if he looks at them. If it's someone with powers, he can actually take their powers as well.
Ooh.
So, at that point, they kind of realize, it's because of this asteroid called Charlotte that crosses the Earth every so often that gives these people their powers. And like the scientists have pretty much made a vaccine for this, so it won't happen ever again. But he realizes that for essentially for like the mutants to not have to deal with being ostracized and like militarized and forced into horrible environments, that essentially, if he just takes everyone's powers in the world, they will no longer have to deal with people having powers. And he'll be the only one, so that they can just kind of get it over with. So his last quest is going across the world, getting everyone's powers. But the more powers he gets, the more he begins to forget. To the point he doesn't even know why he's doing this anymore. Like at one point, he literally is in the desert and says, "Well, I'm gonna go take over the world now because I'm all powerful."
See, that is an interesting
And
thing of downsides. I was actually going to say one last one, which actually kind of connects to the Taskmaster one, but also connects back around to what I said last week, which was infamy. Like, that is potentially a downside. For instance, one of the other downsides of another power, All for One, and One for All, I guess you could say, but specifically One for All, is infamy. Like, All for One gets fame because he can take people's powers and give people powers. He can give people multiple powers. If they're not capable, though, they either go catatonic or they die, or something else happens. Whereas One for All, it is a culmination of eventually basically just passing down that power until eventually so much power is within the current user that they are very powerful. But if anyone truly knew how it worked, they would try to find them and torture them to give them that power so that they could have ultimate power. And there are many downsides to One for All, which are actually shown in the show, so I'm not really going to go into it too much because I've already spoken about it way too much in past episodes. But it's
and some of us might want to watch it.
Yes, but I was actually going to say it's more about the infamy powers, even if they're given or taken. I mean, for one, throwing this out there again, another One Piece reference. Sorry, Sam. There's a guy who read up an entire encyclopedia of all the known devil fruits, and he finds out that a guy on his crew gets the fruit, and the rules of the crew is whoever gets that fruit, they are the ones who decides if they eat it or sell it. And he said, I couldn't have the chance, I couldn't allow him to take that chance of him eating it, so I killed him in cold blood and took it myself. And it's that thing of, that's another downside already in that universe. If you have this power, some people will try and find a way to kill you for it and try and take it, because they later on find out that devil fruit power can actually be, once you've killed them, it then transfers from that person into the nearest or a random fruit within a specific radius, and then it turns that fruit into a devil fruit. So technically you could just have an apple in your hand, stab this MFer, and then once you've killed him, that apple suddenly turns into a devil fruit. Awesome, thanks for the cool powers, bruh. Oh! And then suddenly you have his powers.
Has anyone tried... I've got a One Piece question. Has anybody tried, getting an orchard and essentially luring superpowered pirates to come in there and just basically setting up death traps?
You know what?
No. Throughout.
I mean, the closest thing is there was a moment where a character kills... Basically, there was a character that kills a creature that has a power, or a thing that has a power, just so that then it's that thing of and they put this bushel of apples next to it, and they were thinking, well, since there's a multitude of them, one of them will turn into the devil fruit. That's the closest thing that they've ever done to it. The only other one further than that is a character actually did steal another person's powers, but we're not quite sure if whether or not that's because the power that they have is to take other people's devil fruit powers. We're not 100% clear on it. But yes, that's a very good answer. That's a very good question, Alex. People are also trying to create fake devil fruits as well. As I said last week with the Smiles curse. That would be kind of an interesting thing to see. Just a person just creating...
I would absolutely... That would be absolutely great. It would be basically it would be easy to do. You just sort of spread a bit of info, say wow, this is an island full of devil fruits, and it's just a gauntlet of death traps, and one of these sooner or later, someone is going to get killed, or they just or they'll realize that it's just a regular orchard of apples.
But this comes to the second part of this real conclusion of downsides of using powers. Certain powers, as you said in Charlotte, they can actually have obvious drawbacks or obvious downsides that... I
should say in Charlotte, they all have downsides.
Yeah. Trust me, I know, because Okay, I didn't watch it, but I did look up every one of their
So, like-
powers.
Like one of them, like the main love interest / girl that likes to hit the main character. Her power is that she can become invisible, but to one person, or the guy who can essentially become a missile. Like his version of quote unquote teleportation, where he becomes moves at supersonic speeds.
But he
But
smashes
he can't-
into things.
Yeah, or the
Yeah.
guy who, or the woman who is that can talk to the dead, become possessed by the dead, but it's only her sister. Yeah, watch Charlotte, by the way. It's weird and
that's
wonderful.
sort of like, I wouldn't necessarily say that specific one is. That's more of like a limitation, and the invisibility, but only to one person. That's more of a limitation.
Then,
But
probably
the
the
guy,
one that's most like that would be
the guy who can move at hypersonic speeds. That I would definitely consider, because he can't necessarily control. It's only in one direction, isn't it? He can only go straight forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
That is that.
First-
It's a downside, but it's also great because he can create mass explosions when he does this.
Oh
so
yeah, because it's
he can, yeah.
a physical object moving through the air at hypersonic speeds from a 0 to potentially 600 mile an hour sudden boost of speed. I was actually going to say that, like, this is the thing. We're talking about downsides and limitations. And we're actually saying drawbacks and weaknesses. Double-edged swords, I feel like they have to be something that is actually considered something that would weaken them, that would actually endanger them, or would actually be something that once you've taken it, it's that thing of it can actually become a problem. Rather than something that the power can't do. Because I feel like at that point, all powers ever, other than the ability to be God or actually be a god, I feel like almost every single power at that point has a downside. And even then, like, I guess, again, certain people could argue that certain god powers are actually still have that. But there are limitations to all powers. Otherwise, at that point, there's nothing. Certain
your Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it's the thing of, like, Superman has kryptonite. Like, as we said before, like, Green Lantern has anything yellow. As you said, the Avatar state has, well, being killed whilst in the Avatar state destroys it for the rest of them. Devil fruits. You eat them, you suddenly lose the ability to swim forever, except from one very dumb fruit, which I'm not going to talk about here.
And Dragon Guard, where you become essentially, if one of you dies, you're screwed.
Exactly.
And you lose your most important
attribute.
The thing you find most, like in one instance, this guy's hair.
Hey,
the ability to give birth.
Hey, what is your main thing? I'm very good at juggling. I can juggle like 10 million things at once. You lost your arms. Wait, what?
No. You wouldn't lose your arms. You just lose your ability to juggle.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I mean,
it's even worse because
it would depend. It does depend on like what your pact beast is. Like the more stronger, example being like if your main asset is speaking, it might be you lose the ability to speak or you lose your entire tongue.
Fair enough. Jeez. I was gonna say though, like
great game series.
I was going to say that, like, out of every single thing, I'd actually say that, like, you've also got the usage of chakra in Naruto. Again, going back to Naruto, is another anime, which is they use their life force, and because of that, it can kill them. They also do that in the same thing with the last Star Wars movie. Spoiler alert. They use life force, and apparently, if you do it too much, you can actually basically transfer the rest of your life force to someone else and kill yourself, whilst in turn resurrecting someone else. I would say, though, that there's a lot of different things that you can or can't do in them. Like, for instance, I'd say, as a person who has read and watched a lot of fiction that uses the concept of downsides and double-edged powers, I'd say the worst ones, in my opinion, are the ones that have... I'd say that are overly dramatic. Like, for instance, like, oh, by the way, for instance, the Avatar state thing, or the like, for instance, an ability where, by the way, if you are touched by this one particular thing, you die. I don't think it should be that big. I'm not saying that the Avatar state one is flawed, because I still think that, the Avatars are basically like freaking gods. Okay, like it kind of makes sense that their one weakness is basically the Achilles tendon to end their immortal streak. Theoretically, immortal streak.
I was thinking a good one was probably one of the biggest downsides would be like Bruce Banner and the Hulk.
Yeah.
Because the big upside is anything that's around you will be destroyed if it's attacking you. But the downside is that you now essentially become a different person.
I was also going to say,
depending on continuity, completely forget everything that you just did while you were in that state.
I was also going to say another thing to do with that, actually adding on to that, is you also don't necessarily know if the Hulk is going to like who your friends are. For instance, there is a one where, like, in the movies, Hulk just starts attacking everyone. Like, obviously in the comics, there have been moments where he's gone up against some of the biggest heavy hitters, whereas Banner's like, I don't agree with this, and Hulk is like, nah, Hulk smash.
Yeah. Or, like, even, like, during the Planet Hulk saga, where Bruce Banner was more or less just kicked to the curb and stuck inside.
Yeah.
Whereas the Hulk just remained entirely in control. That'd be a pretty big downside, where you lose your entire sense of self, more or less.
It is that Jekyll and Hyde's downside,
being.
Isn't it? It is that kind of, I think that's kind of interesting. I really kind of like that. I think that's a good point to have brought up, to be fair, Sam.
Yeah. To be honest, Hulk was my other great example. But I just wanted to bring up Drakengard, because Drakengard was a series no one's probably heard of, and I like Drakengard.
I'm trying to think of one, and I think I might actually have another downside, I guess.
Oh.
And it is actually something that we haven't talked about, or at least it's something that we haven't talked about in a long time. Dark Souls! Yay!
What's the downside with Dark Souls? That's a lot I know now.
Okay, so Dark Souls, the downside with Dark Souls is actually from all three of them, but the biggest one is from two, but I'm going to say that it's all from three of them, and I'm going to list them off very quickly. First one, in Dark Souls 1, you have the downside of, if you are not human, being undead. You are immortal, you can't die, but if you keep dying too many times, you'll eventually go hollow, and you'll eventually go mad, and you will be able to die permanently because you've lost all of your mind. So basically it's the equivalent of the argument that people say, once you've lost all your memories, isn't that technically a part of you dying? And some people say, no, it's only when the soul dies. But then some people have been saying that, well, if the soul has left the body, does that mean that you've died? But if the body carries on, etc., etc., that just entirely goes, no. If the body keeps dying too many times and keeps resurrecting, you then have this thing of, well, then, okay, then in that case, then you've got this thing of, the body dies, keep coming back, body dies, keep coming back. Eventually you become a hollow, and then you lose your mind. And that's it. You lose your sanity, and you die permanently. In the actual second game, each time you die, you become weaker, because you're becoming more and more hollow. Your body eventually becomes to the point of which that is so easily withered that in the game's mechanics, you can actually, if you die too many times, you can actually end up with 1 point of health being your maximum health. And you actually need to use these objects, because human effigies, to gain your humanity back, to become human again, even if it is still temporary, before you eventually die again. And in the third and final one, you become a kindled and unkindled. The only real downside is you are actually basically only brought back because that you are destined to fight against horrific monsters, because it is your solemn sworn duty, and eventually you are expected to sacrifice yourself into the flames. Now obviously you don't have to, but your whole existence is only because of that. However, being hollow is a choice in that third and final game. It is not something that you have to do indefinitely. So that's what I'd say.
I've come up with more examples now from the classic world of literature. And then I will allow Alex to speak at some point.
Is it a different mechanic of
yes.
downside? Okay.
It is. I have two different mechanics now.
Okay.
One is the Invisible Man.
Okay.
His main advantage is, yes, he can be invisible, but his disadvantage is he's invisible. His power is also his downside. Because he can be invisible, but then you can't really go about your life, can you?
If you can't turn it off, no.
Yeah, if you can't turn it off, because then, well, you can't really interact with people unless you're wrapped in bandages, wearing goggles. And let's be honest, if you're invisible, you could just get hit by a car.
You could paint yourself, or, and this is a JoJo's reference,
they did do that in The Invisible Agent.
Put makeup on yourself and wear sunglasses. Again, watch JoJo's Part 4 if you don't know what I'm talking about. If you do know,
they did do that in Hollow Man.
Well done. Thanks for listening.
They did that in both Hollow Man and the 1943 movie, The Invisible Agent. And the other downside was I was covering in Vampire, because damn you, coin, bringing me into your world of vampires and masquerades. Because, you have all these powers to manipulate the minds of men and become bats and clouds and various other amazing things. But you've got two main downsides. One being you need blood to power your powers. And two, well, I mean, actually, there's three downsides. One being you can be staked, which just makes you go into sleep mode. And then sunlight just immediately kills you.
Okay.
And you're afraid of crosses and various other supernatural things.
All right, we have to talk about this. I'm now going to go into Joe Explains. Here we go. Sorry, I just had to put something down. I was just having another drink. We have to go into this. Sorry, Alex, you're an expert of the human body and whether or not it is possible or not possible to live or die from certain situations.
I would like to say so. Yes.
Yes. If I put a stake through your heart, would you in fact die?
It depends, actually. Because, if you try... I mean, this is the thing, if you know what you're doing, yeah, that would insta-kill me. Or it could annoy me. That might just be me, though.
Because I personally feel like if all I did was go to sleep when I have a very lethal object placed directly into my life pump, I would necessarily say that if I just went to sleep and when removed I am awake again, I'd say that is a really good way of just going to sleep rather than dying. So I wouldn't.
Shall I rephrase?
No.
No, I shall rephrase. It's more like sleep paralysis as opposed to being asleep, wherein you get staked and you're you can't move.
I'd
move barely.
Say, okay.
So you can still be punched and punted and burned and various other things, and you can't do jack.
Right. I'm gonna say this.
Whereas death is just instant death.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this now, just for all of us to hear. As me personally, you can think of it as a downside if you want, but as me personally, I don't care what perspective you see it from. It is the same equivalent of Wolverine being shot in the head in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and him waking up and him forgetting everything. That's not a downside. He is still alive. And remove the stake, you will still come back and you're fine. So no,
remove that one aspect from what I have said.
If you died instantly from being staked, that is a weak point, not a double-edged power.
Then you also have people with strong faith that can kill you, that can more or less not kill you.
Everything else you said was fine. I just wanted to be an arsehole.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. I would still count it as a drawback, so to speak.
Yeah.
I wouldn't count...
if you're an immortal being, that is a drawback.
I would count vampirism as the perfect double-edged power, and, I would never say anything against it. However, the stake thing, anyone could die from being stabbed in the heart. That's not really a downside. It's just a gap in your defenses. It's the I don't know. It's the Superman magic weakness thing. It's he's only a weakness because there's a gap in his resistances. It's not necessarily a drawback because it's just something that you didn't think. It's the same thing when someone just goes, "I have a shield and it defends me from bullets and being stabbed." Yeah, but what if someone were to hit you on the back? Oh, well, I guess that's a massive weakness. There's no point in having a shield then. It's that argument of you'd still want to have it, I mean, yeah. Like, if it was just that thing of like, hey, by the way, you're functionally immortal. Oh wow, cool. Are there any downsides? Well, someone can still stab you through the heart and you die. I'd
mean,
still
you'll
be
die.
like, that's even better. It's the
No, because you
Alex,
become
please.
paralyzed, and then you can be taken
Back
away.
me up
I
here.
am thinking.
Let's okay. Shall I say this?
No,
would
I'm
you
not
rather
backing you
die or be? Would you rather die being an instant death and you never wake up, or two, you get paralyzed, brought to some facility, tortured for eternity, so that you can be cut up, figured out how you work, or would you rather just die instantly?
Of
those two options, which would you rather have?
after watching Deadpool,
Downside
after watching Deadpool, Sam, I'd say I'll still take my chances because at least then there might be a chance of me escaping.
I mean, probably not. These would be hunters. Probably, they have ways of stopping you.
Also, if I know that there's a definite way out, I still don't see it as a downside. If someone said like, by the way, if someone can take you through the heart and you become paralyzed, and then like you can wake up after it, and they could be doing whatever to you, I'll be like, yeah, but that's the same equivalent of like saying like, right now you choose to be human, someone can chloroform you. Or someone could hit you over the head and knock you out, and then drag you to their creepy dungeon. I'd still say that vampirism definitely is a perfect double-edged sword, Sam. I'm not denying that. You were right on the money. So that one weakness I wouldn't say is a weakness. I'd say it's again.
One debate over torpor, but anyway, But
this is what I like. This is a good conversation for us to have. This is a good discussion. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other ones that from famous literature.
Alex, do you have one?
Yes, Alex, speak up.
No, I'm letting you. I'm letting you nerds fight amongst yourselves.
To be quite honest, Alex is being me from last week.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's like, well, it is one of those things that I like my cursed items and the downside powers, but it's like I don't really have many examples other than the ones that I just gave that I really think that really resonate.
Okay, well, in that case, I guess if we've really come to sort of the end of this.
I thought of one more, and that's Alex has one.
Rogue from X-Men. Boom! Sorry, I had to say it.
Did you have one, Alex, or did?
No, you do it.
Were you just going O because I was going O?
No, I was going O because you were going O.
Same here.
Oh, I have one from Star Wars of all things.
Oh no.
Yes, from Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Oh, he's going with another game reference.
I'm going old school game. Well, you go with your anime references. I will go with my old school BioWare references.
It was not an anime reference. I said Rogue from X-Men because she can't touch anyone, even mutants.
There was an X-Men anime.
Fuck you, Sam.
Either it was X-Men or Avengers. I'm pretty sure she was in it.
No, you're definitely right. Go on, sorry.
But anyway, the one I was talking about was the Sith Lord Darth Nihilus, because they're not subtle in Star Wars, and he has the power to absorb all life energy. Like, he's gained so much power that he can't even. That he essentially just has a legion of ships that he just moves with the Force. And he allows airs in them because he wants people to breathe in them. But his big downside is, the drawback of having this much power is that he starves. Quite literally, if he doesn't absorb life energy now, he can starve himself. He can starve to death in like a matter of days if he doesn't go about absorbing not just life energy, but specifically like Force energy, like people with the Force.
Now this is one that I actually would have to state is a downside, because it's the vampirism argument in the terms of the it's not really a downside because you could just drain other people. Well, yeah, but at the same time you have to drain people. In a lot of vampire literature, you can't eat normal food anymore. And if what I remember about Nihilus is nothing satisfies him other than the life force of other Force users, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and the point in the series in like a second game, there is pretty much no Jedi about because they've pretty much been killed off. There's like only like 6 Force users left in the universe that they know of.
Oh damn! So
So
in other words, he's running out of food.
Yeah, so he's pretty much just off in the galaxy, like I think trying to like make sure he doesn't, like so he's trying to like slow down his metabolism or something, and he goes out to these planets specifically searching. Whenever he feels there's like Force users about, he goes to that planet and absorbs everything, absorbs all the life energy from there.
Damn.
Like he killed a race just because they're Force sensitive.
I mean, again, that's just gluttony and not really good oversight. Really, it's like he should have really seen that. Like, maybe if I'm starving the entire universe of Force users, I'm also starving myself. Maybe I should just wait until they start repopulating. Have one Force user every so many days. Nah.
Honestly, I find that so relatable. That's exactly how I approach food. It's like I could eat all of the biscuits right now, or I could save some for later. I always choose the former option. It is the only way to live.
It is a bit too relatable, I'm afraid. Oh.
Yeah, but he's not that clever. He was more or less, I think he was more or less convinced into doing this by someone else, I think.
Again, so relatable. Well, you know,
yeah, he was convinced in gaining all
that
power
last
before
slice of pizza is very lonely, and I mean, you know, you're just gonna come back to it later. You might as well eat it now. You are right, me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, I think that is the last of this segment. So I guess we have to come to what do we want? What do we want? What do we want? I still haven't actually come up with an actual theme tune for this, so we're just going to go right into it. Instead, I'm actually going to say to you guys, you have to think of a bunch of physical downsides in the real world. Physical, emotional, mental, obstacles, difficulties, even situations, like curses, or even physical difficulties that people may actually be challenged with, even injuries that people may be challenged with. And you have to come up with superpowers based around those. Because I
remember there was.
I actually do have one.
I did have one.
Go on.
Quite funny.
Go on.
Well, the power to do everything, but because of that, you just have apathy. Like that's the downside. Is you only feel apathy now. So you can do anything, but you just don't feel like doing anything.
So Dr. Manhattan.
Oh my god.
No, but the difference is like Dr. Manhattan at least like sees the play, like sees what he has, sees the script, and knows he has to follow it.
He does feel bad about not doing it. He's just kind of above it because he's literally a god. Like he feels really bad, you know. He lies to people to say that he's actually okay when he's not, you know. So. Whereas, like, with the apathy thing, it's like, yeah, I literally don't care about anything anymore.
You could save someone from falling from a building. Yeah,
nah,
but
snooker's on.
I mean, I just don't care. Your house is on fire. All right, I guess I'll make it not on fire when I don't really need to. It's that thing of like
I don't feel fire anymore.
Yeah, it's that thing of I just made it so that like my entire skin is entirely like fire resistant. So I'm cool. Your house was burnt down. Don't worry, I'll just make another one in the blink of an eye. Oh my gosh, yeah, it is actually the perfect thing. A guy who doesn't care about anything, so therefore, because that he can do everything. And he just never does anything other than the bare minimum. It's that thing of like, oh no, this guy's getting mugged. There we go, he has a knife as well. He can't fight back. Look, I've done everything I could.
I mean, he would just look at him like, oh, okay. Just kind of walk away.
You know, maybe he should run really fast.
No, he's about to be stabbed. Oh no.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, that's probably the most like best power mix. Yeah.
That's horrible. What a horrible existence.
It's even that thing of if he gets nullified, he suddenly cares again, and he actually has all of the emotions of like just be suddenly.
Oh my god, I'm a monster.
I'm horrible, and then just his powers come back, and I don't care again. Awesome, cool, whatever.
Tell my wife hello. The planet of the neutrals from Futurama.
Yeah, I was going to say the planet of the neutrals from Futurama. Tell my wife hello. Okay, so I kind of have one. It's based off of like, okay, so my so one of the things is that I actually had like asthma, like growing up as a kid, and hay fever, and I just thought of like one of the coolest things would just be like the idea of just like you have the ability to create like basically you can do incredible things either with your physical body or with your lungs. But the only thing is that your lungs can only take using the powers every now and again. So for instance, either like you can run really fast, so you can do some incredible things, but because of your asthma, you'll run out of breath very quickly, and therefore like you might actually have an asthma attack if you use your powers too much. Or the opposite, where it's like, your asthma's not very good. It actually makes it difficult for you to breathe out. But when you can use your powers, you can actually breathe and create an entire like hurricane gale force. Only problem is again, if you use this over too much, you hyperventilate.
Ooh.
Huh.
What about you, Alex? Have you got any downsides for some interesting powers?
Yeah, for a real one. The power would be explosion, and the downside is you can only do it once.
I think I see what you're getting at. Well, guys, this has been a great episode.
Actually, by the way, I should say, Joe, that's pretty much Captain America because he does have asthma.
Yeah, but
America.
he can't blow hurricane forces, and he wasn't a chubbo, so.
I do.
What is?
Oh, actually, I realized the guy from Code Geass, the weak kid. What do you call the brother?
Ralo.
Yeah, Rolo.
Is it Rolo or Ralo?
I call him Rolo. Rolo has the power to make people freeze in place.
But he stops.
But he has a heart condition. He has a heart condition, so the more he does it, his heart fails him.
It's funny. It's not actually a heart condition. It just the downside to the power is that it skips a beat, and because of that creates a heart palpitation. And because he uses it too many times, he can actually basically create an arrhythmia, and because of that, he can then actually make his heart stop entirely. Because he uses it too much, he eventually basically has the adverse effect of the equivalent of basically his heart is actually stopping or having a cardiac arrest. So, yeah. However, actually, Code Geass is another perfect answer of you have to have eye contact, or you if you use it too much, you can't stop it from working all the time, or it only works on once on one person ever. Or it can only work on people who have been affected by it, etc., etc. I've got one other one, and this is for the tabletop RPG crowd. So I've got another a power. So this is just it. A power that specifically each time that you use it, it has a random chance of working and a random chance of not, obviously based on the d20. If you get a natural 1, it doesn't work. If you get anywhere from natural 1 upwards, it again does not work. But if you get a 10 or sort of whatever, it works. 10 to 14 works. 15, it does 1.5 times the amount, and you add them half of the maximum possibility as a modifier of extra damage. If you get a 20, modified, not natural, it then becomes 2 times. And then if you get a natural 20, it then becomes 4 times or 3 times. The only downside is, whatever damage you do, you take half of whatever you deal. So in other words, you're wanting for more damage output, and you can actually potentially one-shot a boss on your own. But at what cost?
I thought of one that's pretty horrible now.
Go on.
Really sad and/or annoying one.
Oh.
Okay, well, adaptive mind or super intelligence.
Yeah.
But you can actually get lost in your head more or less. Whenever you try and think out a scenario, it's more or less real in your head. So you play through the scenario, and then after that, through almost an entire lifetime, and then you realize, wait, I'm still in my head, and then you come back, it's only been 2 seconds. And you've had a life, a partner, you've got a new car insurance, you've got a new PIN number.
So me when I'm dreaming.
No, but like imagine like that every 5 seconds, like you just go into a brand new fantasy world.
Oh, okay. So
because
so
you
me,
because like
whenever
you're
I don't have anyone else to talk to.
like you're just talking to someone and you like wonder like what's the best what should I say now? Like 30 years later, but only 5 seconds have passed. And, like I'll say that word. And then yeah.
As
Like
someone,
just kept getting trapped in like these fantasy like
so
worlds
see,
in your head for a bit.
you could have said that with either, as you said, adaptive mind, like one of the powers in the actual game of Animite Tales, or obviously just imagination. Like you have like ADD, or just just like you daydream a lot, and it just so happens that every time that you daydream, you live out these entire worlds, and it feels so real, and everything is so real, and then you just come out and it's like, oh no. But the thing is that like, yeah, like for instance, like you could do this thing where it's like, oh yeah, you can think of something, like for instance anything, like I need to know the answer to this test, and so you think up of another version of yourself who aces this test, but the only downside or drawback is it's a random chance of you might have to see another whole week pan out in those 5 seconds, or you have to see your entire future pan out over the next 30 years for the next 5 seconds, and you come back and you're like, I married a woman, her name was Sandra, we had 2 beautiful kids and an incredible life together. Wait, hang on a sec. Oh no, I need to be taking this test. Shit, what
Do we say
was
the
the
reason why I
answer?
thought of that?
Yeah.
Because I actually read like someone actually had that experience happen to them. I remember reading up in like a one of those like when it was like life and death moments, like near death experience. He actually I think he was like almost beaten. Like he got punched and he got like knocked out for only about like 20 minutes. But in those 20 minutes, he had like a full life. Like he'd gone to college, he'd married, he had like twins and everything.
Whoa.
And then like whenever he came back to the real world, he's still the same age, and he's just like depressed now because he just wants to be with his kids and his wife that
My
he had.
God.
I know that happened in real life, and that's depressing. I'm hoping hoping he doesn't hear this because that's sad. That's sad. I feel sorry for you if you hear this.
If you are hearing this, our thoughts, prayers, and sympathies go out to you. However, at the same time,
That is.
think of it this way.
Don't, Joe.
No, I was gonna
That's-
say no. I was gonna say think of it this way. It's one of those things. This is not for you now. You can turn off now. No.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd say anything that could make it sound any better.
No, there isn't, and
No.
that is awful. There's nothing that we can really do to soften that blow, and I'm not going to try because it's not.
Yeah.
But what I was
Anyway.
actually going to say in the terms of powers and abilities, you don't think of that, the things that really can actually drive you to the reality of real situations and problems. And obviously we see that a lot with, for instance, Billy Batson. He's a kid and he gets bullied, and then suddenly he gets these superpowers. Or you have Bruce Wayne. He's a kid, his parents die, and then he just goes, I'm just gonna become the best badassest guy ever, who's super dark and edgy and overcomes his fears, and I'm not gonna think about things, and I'm not gonna go to therapy, I'm not damaged. And it is that thing of like, it's in a lot of these fictions, we want to think that even though something is double-edged, it's in a way still worth it, because everything in life has a consequence, whether it's negative or positive, but not everything is all good. As ask anyone who's had a car that's broken down a couple times, but it's their favorite car in the world, or a person who has a dog that's beautiful, but has got many vet issues and health problems, and they have to spend a lot of money on it. Or even someone who has kids. I've got a couple of family members who have had babies over the last 3 years. And their kids are amazing and funny, but at the same time, it's that thing of like raising kids. They have a lot of negative as well as positive things to say, for a multitude of things. So everything in real life has these double-edged qualities to it. Everything has a drawback, a downside, and a consequence. It doesn't necessarily always need to be a negative consequence, but at the same time, everything ends up having something that is considered to be negative. And I think that's what we really need to sort of look at here is when we sort of take that, we just have to hope that every decision that we make, every chance that we take is worth it for whatever problems come their way. I guess that's kind of the note that I want to take it on. That, you know, any particular situations that you've taken on, any you know, goals that you strive for, everything is going to have a negative point at some point. It's just how much you strive to keep going forwards, which actually really makes it the most important key factor. Is you are the most important part of that. I don't know if there's anything else that any of you want to add to that.
You viewers, you're great.
I'm sorry we made everything depressing.
I kind of...
I'd say that's uplifting.
I would like to believe that is uplifting.
Part of me wishes I'd never brought this up.
No, it's all right. I mean, at least you did. I thought you were going to make that joke saying, you know, when you're raising quids, there's many downsides, like they turn out to be imagined in your mind after a near-death experience, which is always a downside of parenting. But I'm the one that said that instead, so you can blame me for that. Hey,
way to be tasteless.
So what you're saying really is the strength of one's will that allows them to continue striving for the upsides, no matter how many downsides they go through, how many drawbacks they are taken aback. They can still find a way to keep fighting forwards, because as once a wise Chris once said, I can do this all day. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. Take care and have a lovely night. Next episode we might very well be talking about forbidden techniques, also known as double-edged abilities and techniques.
Where I shall be quiet once again.
Yes.
And Alex will no doubt take my place.
Although, if you would instead like to hear another subject, please contact us either through Twitter, as I am at Animite Tales, and Alex, you are...
I'm Obscuracom, so yeah, come yell at me. Pay attention to me.
Or check us out on the YouTubes, where you can comment down below and tell us what your favourite double downside or double-edged ability is. Drawbacks and weaknesses. Would you take any of the abilities that we have spoken about today? Or would you simply prefer to stay human? Either way, if you guys would like to hear another subject other than ones that we have already just spoken about now, comment them again below. And I read the comments before each recording, so I will actually take a look and see what you guys have to say. So thank you very much for listening, and take care.
What?
See you in the future.
Ciao, ciao. For now.